All right, everybody, we are back with a brand new Cabral Concept. Can't wait to share today's topic, which is rewriting your inner script, your inner dialogue, and the power of positive self-talk. Now, whenever anybody hears a title around the positivity of self-talk, they start to recoil a little bit away. What is this new age, guru type stuff that you're talking about? And I can assure you that there is a lot of science behind this. And the reason why I want to say that is you have to think about when you are bombarded on a daily basis with negativity, the way that it shapes your mind and your outlook and the way that it frames things is typically through a negative bias. So for example, when we are exposed to a lot of negative news or a lot of negative outcomes over and over, we begin to think in a little bit more of a negative way because that is our expectancy. We start to see things in more of a negative light. So for example, when you study the news and you actually look at the science of the news, the analytics of the news, you'll notice that it's about 90% negative and about 10% maybe positive story. And the reason that it's 90% negative is that our brains are actually wired not to look for the positive, believe it or not, but to actually look for the negative. And that seems kind of strange. It seems maybe counterproductive. Like, why would we want to lean more towards a depressed mind state or a negative or anxious or overwhelmed mindset? But it's not that way. It's actually a protective mechanism inside of our brain that goes back to that reptilian part of the brain, the limbic part of the brain. And here's why. If you encountered a negative tribe or an animal that was out to get you, or there was a lack of water, or there was a lack of food, if you ate and consumed food too much, or whatever it is, you would start to learn from those experiences that if a negative event occurred after you did something, you'd want to remember that. So our brains are hardwired in order to be able to recommend specific resources or ways to go about things based on negative consequences. So we learn from the negative far more than we do the positive. Here's the problem though. When the news and TV and all that know that, they use that to manipulate you to tune in more often. Because if more of the news is negative, you then have more to worry about, which means you need to tune in more because it's more addictive so that you know what to watch out for in the future. Okay, that's why I'm not a huge advocate of any news station. So again, choose your favorite news source because there's actually more news sources now that don't always twist things to as much of the negative. And again, always understand all of that comes back down to how can we get you to watch our ads and our ads? Who's advertising on these news networks? That can be a really scary thing when you start to see, 75%, sometimes more of all ads are paid for by big pharma and big tech and big agro. Like these are real things. And so what are they enabling you to do? Well, hear more of their ads, tune more in because you're worried about the next thing. How can we combat that? Well, what we can do is we can maybe not tune into those sources maybe as much. And again, I'm not telling you which is the best one to tune into. I'm not saying that at all. I don't play favorites in that way. But what we need to do is at least protect the words that we use in our own conversations with ourselves. Now you might say, well, I don't talk to myself. Well, here's the thing. All of the thoughts that are in your head are mini conversations that are happening between you and you every single day. So if a lot of those conversations are every time you go to think about, I'm going to start my nutrition today. And that little voice says, not today. You've got this, and this to do. Or what's the point in starting it? You haven't been able to stick with it before. Or, why are you going to choose that new nutrition plan, that new diet plan? You know that it's not going to work for you. You know that maybe you'll lose a couple pounds initially, but after that, no, you're just going to gain it back. That's all the negative self-talk that sometimes runs through our head. And can it be that way with the relationships? Like, who are you to think that you're going to be in a better relationship than you have been in the past? Or with our career, who are you to think that you're actually deserving of that promotion or that you're able to bring that kind of value? So it is these thoughts that pull us back. It's like our own crabs in a bucket. And if you haven't heard that crabs in a bucket analogy before, it's the reason you don't need to put a cover over a bucket full of crabs is that every time a crab starts to reach the top, the other crabs pull it back down. And that's sometimes how we can be our own worst enemy. And these things can spread like viruses inside of our body, these thoughts that continue to just swell around inside of us and pull us back down to a level that we feel comfortable. Now, again, you might say to yourself, well, I'm not comfortable being where I am with my body or my health or my relationship relationships or my spirituality or my career or my finances or whatever it might be? And I would say yes, but you've learned to live with it at least. So your body knows what to expect. It knows what it's going to get. And sometimes that's a safe space for the body. So in order for us to begin to break free of that, we actually have to change our self-talk. We need to understand that our words do shape our reality. And if we are always using a negative mindset, it embeds into our subconscious, which is the deeper, not conscious level, which is like 5% of our reality, but the deeper 95%, which is where all the childhood trauma may lie, or all of our previous experiences that we can't draw on every second of the day consciously, but they're there. And it's where a lot of times that small voice comes from inside of us. And it can, of course, grow stronger and louder as it tries to protect us more and more. But it also, all of these negative self-thoughts and us fighting those negative thoughts and negative words that we speak to ourselves can really drain ourselves of our energy. And sometimes we just don't want to deal with it anymore. So we simply stay put. We stay where we're at. And that's why when we look at last year and the year before and 5 years before that, not a lot's changed. Not a lot's changed in our relationship. Not a lot's changed in our spirituality. Not a lot's changed maybe in our career or our finances or our body or our health. And the reason is that we are allowing the programs that we've been running in the past to continue to run into the future. And so if nothing is done, it limits our potential. It creates these invisible barriers that we just keep hitting up against. Now, we don't even see it because it's from deep within us. And it is the negative self-talk. So the very first thing that we need to do in order to be able to turn things around is catch ourselves. Simply being self-aware. Self-awareness is the number one thing that you can have. It really is. Because you don't even need to change anything yet. Just say, oh, there it is. Oh, when I'm watching the news, let me actually count the negative stories. Oh, well, that's negative. That's negative. That's negative. Oh, maybe there is something to this negativity. Now let me pick up, the newspaper for the day. Wow, all of these are negative as well. All right, so what am I reading or what am I consuming that's positive? That's the first place to start. Then when we start to ask ourselves our own questions and we have our own conversations with ourselves and we start to come up with our own goals, what's that little voice saying? Oh, wow, that's negative on that. I never knew that I believed that. I never knew subconsciously that's what's coming up. Write it down. When you begin to write these things down, you then start to take the power away from the voice. Just say, yeah, I see what you're saying. Oh, yeah, that may have protected me in the past. I see why you're trying to keep me safe. I understand that. But in order for me to reach my highest potential and be of service to others in the world as well after I help myself, remember, fill up your own cup. When you fill your own cup, you have so much more to pour out to others. And as you begin to look at it in that way, you can start to overpower that voice. Now, the voice will always be there. It just becomes a little lighter, a little softer, and a little weaker over time. And you become stronger over time simply because you've taken one more small step. That you've had to have that conversation now back and forth with that little voice inside of you saying, it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. Worst case, this is what happens. We're going to be okay. I am going to implement that new diet, that new supplement plan. I am going to take that at-home lab. I am going to go out there and see if there is that right person for me. I am going to deepen my spirituality. I am going to look outwards. I am going to look inwards, even deeper. I'm going to do all of the things that I'm starting to learn can improve my overall subconscious belief set and also my ability to up-level my life. Because as you start to up-level your life, your quality of thinking changes. You'll find yourself not wanting to be around the same groups of negative people, tuning on the same negative evening news, or reading any negative-based publication. You'll instead want to surround yourself with more positivity. You'll want to look at your vision board. You want to look at your big why that you write down. You want to start to hang out with more people and go to more events of more positive people. And guess what? Now you're inviting what? More positivity into your life. Maybe you're conscious of it, maybe you're not. But as that starts to happen, your life changes. And it changes for the better. Because now you don't have all of that drained energy from only thinking about worst case scenarios. You don't have all the limiting of your potential. And you start to see that you don't need to make huge leaps and bounds, but rather small steps on a daily basis that adds up to a whole new life, a life that you could only once imagine. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. I appreciate you, as always, sharing the show with anyone that you believe it could serve. Take care, everybody. Have an amazing day. Look forward to hearing your success story soon. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.